Well, we're still coloring on the design project for the 6th grade here, and our message is coming along pretty nicely, spelling out all people are created equal. It seems like we were right here when last time, our last session, so I'm getting to a point where I almost can't protect my work that easily anymore. So soon we'll be addressing all of the areas of white. I'm going to use a white colored pencil, of course, to color the whites white. Nobody thinks that's important until the paper turns all yellow and dingy many years from now, especially if you make a piece of artwork that you would like to keep for many years or perhaps give to somebody. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen by coloring the whites white. That waxy material that's in the colored pencil protects the paper from the air, and these colors stay really vivid for quite some time, especially if they are put under glass or framed. So if you make a good piece of artwork, you should take some time to consider framing it and hanging it in your house. I'm asked pretty frequently if I have some of my own art hanging in my house, and the answer is absolutely. Not everything I make pleases me to the point where I would want to show it to the entire public or even guests, but some of them I'm really quite proud of, and I also painted several paintings with the intention of them being in a specific spot in the house, and so the presentation space was very important to the overall perception of the beauty of the piece. And so that's also something you really got to consider when you are going to hang a piece of artwork. The version of this which I did as a painting, a self-portrait, I spoke about earlier, was basically 6 feet long and 2 feet wide, and it was very difficult to find a space for such a large piece of artwork, and I measured off the space above the fire exits in my classroom, and behold, that piece of artwork fit almost perfectly into that window right there, and so it was displayed there for many years, and I hope it will continue to be displayed there in the future. But it was a painting, but it looked very much like the project that we are working on right here. In fact, because it used the exact same alphabet and had a lot of representational things in it about how old I was at the time. There's all of the blocks that are colored in like they are here, but we were painting it. All representative of each year of my life at the time that I made the piece of artwork. And so I had not yet turned 50 at that time, so there are 50 squares. 49 of them are filled in with characters such as this, and the very last one was black because I had not yet turned 50. So I didn't know what that was going to be. Alright, let's move on. We're making extraordinary progress here. I'm going to go on to black to finish off our letter A. Now, if we had the real flags in front of us, you would notice that this flag A and B both have got a notch cut in them at an angle. However, on a piece of artwork like we're making right here, didn't really want to cut a hole in your artwork in order to represent that, so we had to make an adjustment to it and use these black triangles here to represent that notch that's cut out. Very much like the flag of the state of Ohio has a little notch cut in the very end of it, the thin end of it. And also a lot of times what you see, sports pennants that people wave around have a little notch cut in the end of them, or the cavalry flags that, you know, in the Old West that people would carry with them when they rode horses into battle. They would have a notch cut into the end of them. So likewise, so does this. However, we're not going to cut a hole in the artwork. We're simply going to substitute this black triangle instead. Alright. We're down to the last actual letter, and then we're going to dress it up with some white colored pencil. And we're going to check out what we have made. And then, in the remaining portion of this project, we're going to grade it, or discuss grading, and how we're going to go about that. Now, we're down to the very last letter L, and it looks like it's black and yellow again. So this would be black and black, so it looks like we need to go to the yellow first in this case, so we don't smear it all together, although we do have yellow touching black here, so we'll have to be very careful in that area so that we don't pollute the purity of our colors, which is a big part of the attractiveness of this type of a project. So it's about time to erase the very last letter and the very last character of the message. And this is taking quite some time to get through, and it usually does. And the pace I work at is somewhat faster than the pace that most students, especially 6th graders, work at. I want you to simply work, slow and methodically toward making a good piece of artwork. I don't want you to rush through it. However, you do have a due date on these, and it seems like 10 days is plenty. Okay. Let's get to work here. So bearing straight down on the tip when possible. Good working point. Not too pointy and snaps off, where all you do is spend your time, resharpening a pencil. So if you got your own pencils, you're probably lucky, because hopefully nobody's been abusing your pencils. When you use the pencils in the physical classroom, many times you actually get a pencil that just will not sharpen. And that's usually one that's been beat against a table or abused somehow over its lifetime. And so the lead, or the waxing material that we would call the lead in the colored pencil, gets broken up inside of the colored pencil and it falls out, and it just never will hold a point. Just about the time you get it sharpened the way you like it and you put pressure on it, it just snaps off. Now, this entire project, I have not broken a lead yet, so I am very confident that I'm going to make really good use of my materials here. And so that's always a good thing too, is that you can save these materials for the next project and you'll have a greater variety. If you break off your pencil tips constantly, you're actually using up your pencil at a much faster rate, and there's not much you can do about it. You can't grab it with your tiny fingertips and try to color with it. I suppose you could try. You're going to get, I'm going to guess, poor results. Alright, now the yellow looks pretty good here. I was able to not touch any of the red or the black and pollute it all up, although that can still happen if you're not careful. So let's just dust that the other way, just in case there's some black residue on there. Okay, moving down to here. I may have to remove my piece of tape there when I get to that. Hope it doesn't leave any tape residue. Sometimes that causes the colors to look funny. They don't take to the paper the same way when there's glue residue on it. So you've always got to be really careful. All this strange things can happen on a regular basis, and things you would never predict until they happen to you, and then you predict them the next time around. Okay. And I hope everybody's getting over the hand cramps by now from drawing and coloring constantly. This is a part of your development, and this particular craft is to get strong hands so that you can make opaque work and you can make marks deliberately and handle the materials with more confidence instead of with a unsteady hand. So fine muscle control and coordination between your eyes and your hands and your brain. That's a good part of this too. So thinking through your projects, taking a moment to consider what might happen if you use two colors next to each other. That's all a great deal of making the artwork, is simply planning it out. Now, a lot of class projects have been planned out for you, but then you have to plan out how you're going to execute that work. And so I'm merely modeling for you through this project the amount of time and work habits I think are necessary to complete it to a high quality work, one that I would be happy to hang in my house or perhaps in my classroom, my physical classroom. So here we are up close to the edge, so we got to work with real caution there so we don't mess anything up, tear the paper all the way down at the end here. Okay, we're high risk. Let's see if we can peel that tape back, and hopefully it hasn't messed up the paper. It doesn't look like it has got any residue on it, so we might be in luck here. Put them off the side. Okay. Now progress is being made, has been made, because we are looking at almost the completion of the project. Now I'm getting in a rush, and I'm starting to pull up that corner instead of coloring it. So I'm excited to see it done also, but it's not done yet. There's still work to be done to finish it out. But that looks pretty good, I'm going to say. So we're down to the last color, and it looks like we've used more blue than any other color in this exercise, and sometimes that's how it works out. I'm going to try to tape down that little corner a bit for the camera to see better. So it is now time to address this last two squares of black. Seems like we would never finish this just a few sessions ago, but here we are now approaching the finish line with it, and that's a good thing. So I guess I'm going to go with the black against black and then nothing down here. That seems like a safe operation. And it's so shiny now that the paper has got so much waxy colored pencil on top of it that it's flashing in the camera. So whenever it moves, you see little flashes. So it's not just that it's opaque and we can't see. There's very few places where we can see any white paper showing through, and we're going to be working on that anyway here before long, because we have to go over the white with white colored pencil. And it's kind of difficult to know if it's opaque enough sometimes when you're doing that, so it's not always as easy as it may seem. But this project has come together very nicely. So if you've been keeping up with the production, then you've been working pretty hard. If you've fallen, your pace of work doesn't keep up with my pace of work, that's not anything bad. That simply means that you are learning this material, and I can just produce it more quickly, especially for the purposes of instructional videos. I realize it may take you some additional time to do this type of work, and so you should pause the video frequently if you have to try to catch up, or play it on a slower speed, although that will generally change the way you hear my voice. So if that sounds strange to you, you'll either have to mute it and just follow along visually, or you'll just have to play sections of it slow, where you may be struggling to keep up with the pace of the work. But it takes a great deal of attention. One of the things that is very difficult for people to learn is sustained focus. But once they learn it, it really changes the way they don't not just make artwork, but the way they conduct their lives. So the ability to not get easily bored with a task is not something most people are born with. It's a skill that is learned through applying yourself over long periods of time. Now, some people learn it because there's very serious consequences for not being able to apply yourself for long periods of time. Pilots, surgeons, and such must be able to sustain their focus for long periods of time, and I think we all understand that. But that's a learned skill. Then so is making art, so is reading important literature, so is learning anything, mathematics, and then applying those mathematics to solve problems. These are deep thinking, long-term, long attention span activities. And people who design great buildings and people who do the mathematics for space vessels, all of these types of individuals have long attention spans. And so long attention span is a good thing, and it's something that you have got to learn. I've seen many students who have extremely long attention spans for things that they like, such as video gaming, but when it comes to long attention spans for making things like an art project or learning math or how to calculate or how to read and write appropriately, their attention span is not so fantastic. So I think it's a choice that a person can make to either learn to have a long attention span, sustained focus is technically what it is, or they just will not learn it, and that will have profound effects on their life in the future. And so the ability to focus on something you're doing, especially complex work, for long periods of time is a skill. However, it is exhausting many times, so you do get mentally tired from thinking and sustaining your focus, and it becomes difficult to do good work when you are mentally tired. So it is important to rest your mind, rest your eyes. When you're making visual artwork, many times your eyes become very fatigued from staring at colors, saturated colors like what we're looking at right here, colors that are pure with almost no pollution in them and opaque, and reflect back a lot of the wavelength of the particular color you're working with. That can mess with your vision, and it makes your eyes tired. And so sometimes you have to step back from these things, take a brief break, and just examine your work from a different point of view. And you will see the flaws in it, or you may actually see things in it that you are really good that you just didn't notice when you have your face right in your work at close inspection levels. So it's important to rest your mind. If you're going to have long sustained mental focus, it will also make you mentally tired after a while. People who build models a lot of times have long sustained focus. People who enjoy woodworking, they can just keep doing these things for hours and hours at a time. So I think a lot of the sustained focus comes with activities that you find interesting, and so I can see why gaming can keep a young person's sustained mental focus for hours at a time because they enjoy it. And so a lot of people are that way with music, and they really enjoy music, and they can keep playing their instrument for hours at a time, and it doesn't seem like a chore to them. So, but it is a skill, that's for sure. You kind of choose the things that you want to put your mental focus into. And I'm hoping on this project here, it's been towards drawing it and coloring it and trim it out and trying to communicate your message. But it has really come along more quickly than I had anticipated, and I like the students when we first started and there was nothing but a blank piece of paper, it seemed like it would be a long ways until we would be done with it. And any project worth making has always started that way, with nothing but an idea. And so we went from an idea to a representation of that idea with a piece of design work, which is really nothing more than the practice of using colors and shapes to communicate a message, much like advertising is. So logos are a big part of design work, trying to come up with something that represents a company or a corporate idea. So you could look through company logos, Google that up, and you will be fascinated at how much fascinating and very interesting, visually engaging artwork goes into the corporate logos of not just the companies in America, but worldwide, and private companies, and maybe companies right here locally as well. So that would be a good side project just to think about, is just to look those things up and come up with, something that you think is really, really a neat corporate logo. And maybe comment on Google Classroom about that if you find something you think is particularly interesting. Alright. Now at this point, we are getting close to being done with this project. And so we're simply going to go back now with a white colored pencil. This is everybody's favorite part. And we're going to dress up those white areas quickly, but accurately. And I like to start at the very top, and of course, kick the table there. The top, we'll have to peel this piece of tape back because it's touching the area where the white colored pencil will be. It looks like I kind of tore my paper a bit, but I'm not going to tell anybody. Maybe Larry knows. Alright. So you can see the shiny surface of the colored pencil when you get it filled in. And so the key here is to just, you can tell the difference. The colored pencil is slightly lighter than the paper upon which it rests, but you've got to get right up next to that with just that little edge I was telling you about earlier. So we're going to leave that tiny little micro space. Try not to snag the blue. If you do that, then it will smudge and make a mess of your work. Okay, so I was able to get all that tucked in there without catching any of the blue, and I'm holding this down carefully. Oh yeah, I can see it. You will be able to see it on close inspection, although you may not be able to see it on camera. But I'm doing it because that's where it's at. Alright, that looks fantastic. I can see that if I look at it at an angle. Try not to snag any of the previous colors and pollute them. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. This one, to me, looks like it could use a little bit of work right there to get rid of some of my layout work from earlier in the project, and I was so eager to get going I neglected to clean it up accurately. So, that looks good. Dust that off. It also cleans the paper, so it holds the I'll just tack that down a little bit. It holds the colored pencil a little better. This still looks like it's got plenty of point on it, so see, I gotta try to leave just the smallest of tiny spaces in between these. And see, since these are not entire squares, this part of the project can go pretty quickly sometimes. Of course, if you get really wrapped up in painting white on white, coloring white on white, but it does seem to straighten out your color vision, because staring at white's not so bad as staring at like yellow or blue. Red, that'll really mess up your vision. Okay, looks like I'm going to have to sharpen my white colored pencil as we go down to the next letter P in the next row. Better give this a clean up too. It's that dot in the middle that always tends to show through. And when you color over it, white is pretty transparent, and it will show things through if you don't smudge it even. Alright. Once again, I'm going to try to leave that smallest micro space. Trim almost right up to the line. But try not to touch that other color. It's very tricky work. And then you leave yourself a little margin there. And the same thing here. It's got to be almost there, precise work. And then that little margin allows you to color a little bit faster. Same thing, down the edge. Be careful. Feeling pretty confident. And same thing across the top here. You never can be too careful about this. It's got just a thinnest space in between the blue color and the white, because the risk of snagging it is not worth the results of smearing it and messing it all up. So you just gotta, sometimes you've got to just know where to stop. And this is looking pretty good. Trying to make sure I get any areas that I missed. Okay, so